Welcome to this morning's HIIT workout. Today's topic is the lean canvas, and it's something probably we all know about and we've all seen, but often it's not always used as well as it could be, and there's also a lot of value that you can take from the lean canvas. So just a reminder, my name is Paul Innes. I run intensive marketing that runs product management workshops, do innovation coaching and mentoring. I've worked with big companies, as you can see across the bottom, startups, run innovation labs. I do work with Oxford University, which is the British size, and I'm a trustee for a charity that supports the elderly and vulnerable. So a wide set of contexts and experiences. So today's routine follows a similar structure. We're going to deconstruct the lean canvas and explain actually what goes in the boxes and what lies beneath, which is more to the point. We will convert that into a pitch canvas. We'll make you aware of something called the pitch canvas. As always, we will talk about where the lean canvas sits relative to other activities you can do before it and after it. We're going to reconstruct the lean canvas with a fairly contemporary example. And as always, at the end, we'll take your questions. And if you could give some feedback, that would be really, really valuable. There'll be more information at the end, but just to signpost that, if you could go to menti.com and put in that 6-digit number, it's 3 questions. Okay, as promised, let's get stuck in to a high intensity workout. The only thing before I do say that is please do use the chat console. I'm monitoring that, so any comments or questions as we go through, I'll relate to those and try and bring them to life for you. So the lean canvas, a couple of things about the lean canvas. We've probably all seen this or a version of this, and there are many versions. This kind of framework has come up really as a result of the lean startup movement back about 10, 15 years ago. And what makes this framework really useful is that it's really your whole proposition on one page. And so that's really quite helpful because you can communicate your concept or your idea very, very clearly. However, one of the challenges with the lean canvas is that it can be a little bit oversimplistic, or its use is oversimplistic. So there are a couple of points I'd like to make before I burst it open a little bit. Firstly is that actually there is an order to do this, and you'll see that's what these numbers are. And interestingly, the order is focusing on the problem and the customer segment. And you would have heard me say this before in many of other workouts that I do and sessions I run, which is you need to own the problem and own the customer before you think about the solution and the product. And so this really forces a discipline to think about the why rather than the what and the how. The other thing just around this is quite often used within the startup world as a way of very quickly talking through a concept, but it's also used in big business, maybe as a screener where maybe big corporates are used to doing big business cases. This is a very good way of assessing or filtering opportunities they want to take further rather than one big spreadsheet. And just one other thing, the good thing about the lean canvas is obviously it's focusing around the holistic problem and the problem in the customer segment. It's important because over half of startups fail because they don't truly get to the problem. And that's actually a fact that comes out from a recent study. So let's just burst this open a little bit more. So I'm going to open the screen up a little bit. And I'm going to go through each of these areas in the order that you would typically need to answer them. So one of the things that I've mentioned already is that some things will lie beneath this box. It will just really be a summary of the work or the thinking or the analysis you've already done. So let's start with the problem. And this for me is pain. Those people that have interacted with me before know that pain is probably one of my favorite words when it comes to innovation, because quite frankly, if it doesn't hurt enough, people are not going to change their habits, their behaviors, or pay for something. And so really drilling into where is the areas of pain, that's really important. And the other thing along with that, if something hurts enough, if people are prepared to change what they already do. So customer apathy is often the biggest challenge to many startups or many concepts or innovations, or even a hard implementation, actually getting it to market. Really good example here is I've seen many medtech innovations that on the surface and actually are really great ideas and could make a difference. But getting them into the ward environment and changing the processes that nurse or medical staff use is one of the hardest things to do. It doesn't matter how great the tech is, sometimes the environment which it's going into is the challenge. And then again, that comes back to our customer segments. Who's really hurting? And this is quite interesting because often who's hurting may not be the person who's prepared to pay and who's really bothered. And so you might want to look at this, and as you start drilling into the problem and the pain point, you start to understand that there are different customers or different segments or different personas that have got a different view. And then once you've done that exercise, that's going to help you with your early adopters. So, which personas are likely to help you get to test your market product fit. And just a warning there, don't always go for the obvious in terms of early adopters. Don't always go for the visionaries because they don't often reflect the large majority that you're going to sell to over time. And the visionaries, of course, will put up with a higher tolerance of flaky products or those sorts of things. They've got a higher tolerance because they see the vision like you do. Let's keep going. So number 3 is your unique value proposition. And this is quite interesting. What makes you attractive to customers, like solving their pain point, and the fact that you resonate to them? And this is quite interesting for investors. Investors want to know what makes you different. Why should I put my money into you? Why should I back this horse over another horse? And one of the ways that you can do that is to give a really compelling message. And this is what the high-level concept is. Give it them in a sentence. Hi, Catherine. Could I ask you to go on to mute? Thank you. And so, that's, if you can't sum it up in 60 seconds and make it resonate to your target audience, you may not have a concept, or you need to work harder at your pitch. Then you're starting to get into solution. And this is the interesting thing. At this point, we start to talk about how you relieve the pain points for your proposed solution. You may not have it yet. This may just be an idea or a concept. But the reality is that you're at number 4 here before you've even got to what it is and how it works. And that's an important thing to understand, because clearly, if you start with the product, nobody buys what or how, they buy why. And then, of course, as you go through this, what is your unfair advantage? And this could be a range of things based on who you are, where you've come from. It could be your intellectual property, just your know-how, your technology, your brand, trade secrets, the fact that you've got deep pockets, the fact that you've got access to customers. It could be that you're actually ahead of the game in terms of timing, or a number of these things. But fundamentally, there must be something that says, this concept is worth proceeding with because of a range of these things, and we will have some space to play. And then you're into the bottom part of this, and so we're starting, once we've worked out what the proposition is, then we start to work out what's going to take to get there. And you won't have all of the details. One of the challenges I often see with the Lean Canvas is people are trying to answer all the questions. Often the Lean Canvas is about posing the right questions rather than getting all of the answers. That is the process of the startup journey, is the learning, not just earning. And so this will be things like startup costs, investment to get going, the running costs, working capital, at a highish level. It's not to say that you're making it up, because trust me, I've seen enough of those pitches where people have just made it up. There needs to be some thought and rigor beneath, but fundamentally it will be an illustration, not the answer. The same goes for revenue streams. So where is it going to be generated? How's everyone getting paid? And what's the business model? And when I say how's everyone getting paid, that links us neatly to 7, which is the channels. Who and what are we going to do to reach the end consumers? Many startups or new concept work with partners or an existing distribution channel. And so this is where you need to identify what is your capability, capacity, and who is it that you're going to use to help to get to your go-to-market. It's interesting, when I do some work with the university incubator, there are many great technologies that you come to the conclusion it's easier and quicker and better to license it. Somebody has already got the unfair advantage of the route to market, the customers, the know-how, the sales force, the reputation. It's far better to sell your IP and license it than try and build a business, because that's tough. And then metrics. And these are things like lead indicators. And these could things be like your marketing effectiveness, how good you are at production, and so on. But then also your lag indicators like customer acquisition costs and customer lifetime value, your price resilience, your churn, which is your loss of customers, and sales. They will be very, very interesting metrics as you get going. Interestingly, the last workout was on customer lifetime value and acquisition cost, and I'll put a link to the YouTube replay in the follow-up. So that's the lean canvas deconstructed. And as you can see, just putting a few post-it notes with a few comments in isn't going to cut it. It needs to be a little bit more detailed than that, albeit you're summarizing your thoughts and thinking. Now, one of the things I will say about the lean canvas is it's a living document. It evolves over time. So you start with version 1, and then you may end up with version 14 at the point that you've got to maybe pitching or sharing your investment to the corporates. So the reality is that you go through lots of iterations. There's a neat model called the pitch canvas. Effectively, you can look at the two. I put it up there because it's worth sharing. But fundamentally, if you're doing the lean canvas properly, you're already at the point of the pitch canvas, with the exception of some things about you, the team, and credibility and your ask. But fundamentally, the lean canvas, if you keep it as a living document, can get you to the point of a pitch. Okay, as always, where does it fit in the process? I think I've already said this. No model lives on its own, but if you look at the lean canvas, you can imagine there's a lot of things already going into that. Yes, it's 10 or 11 boxes and it's 7 steps, but you've kind of got a lot of things around. Have you already validated some stuff with customers? What does the market look like? Some thought around your draft propositions, your high-level financials, who's out there, and more importantly, what do you need to test? So when you go and ask for that investment, you're not asking for that investment to give them back the answer. It's to validate your hypothesis that you're going to hit a big vision. And of course, that's kind of what's it's informing, and you can see that there. Okay, let's reconstruct it. So and bring it to life with an example. So this is the coffee filter company, and the coffee filter company are looking to pivot in the fight against COVID-19. And so what they're looking at doing is, can they leverage their capabilities to produce mask filters? So if we're the coffee filter company, what would a lean canvas look like for them? So let's go through it in order. Firstly, the problem. I think we all know this. There is a growing need for replacement filters for COVID-19 face masks. Without filters, the masks don't work. And also they need replacing regularly. That's a pain point. And actually, if you think about the alternatives, masks are not used, or they're ineffective or cheap filters. So actually the pain point really, if you used to drill into this, is a high risk of infection. And then we think about, well, who are the customers? Well, you've got consumers can be nervous. You may have actually mask companies that have got a great mask, but no filter capability. You've got key workers that can't meet the demands. And you may have governments that want the mask to be effective so they have confidence to bring people back into society. And again, mask companies could be our early adopters here, because they've got the channel to market and they're selling maybe cloth or copper infused masks, and there's a whole load of stuff that's out there. So what's our value proposition? Well, it's high-grade filtration produced at volume for a competitive cost using renewable materials from sustainable resources. That feels like a bit of a big word, but let me sum it up for you and do an elevator pitch. It's a mask filter to save the planet without harming the planet. Our solution is high grade, recycled paper weave. So what we use for a coffee filter to get a lovely brew, bizarrely, is very effective when it comes to filtration in masks. That feels like we can pivot and we've got a proposition that's coming from an existing core competency. And so our unfair advantage is the fact that we've got this coffee filter manufacturing tooling to produce it at a low cost, but also provide quality filters. And the great thing is we've got access to all of the renewable materials. We have an existing supply chain and suppliers and all of the good stuff that goes in with that in terms of those quality controls. If we think about the cost, yes, we're going to need to probably retool our manufacturing process, but we don't need to train our employees because they kind of know what it takes to produce filters. Yes, we need to think about materials and process costs once we get going. And of course, we've got to do some sales and marketing. But if we're going through a mask company, it's going to be account management. It's going to be indirect. Our revenue stream is going to be a share with partners and possibly retail accounts, and maybe some online channel shares. And so when we think about our channels, it's indirect through mask manufacturers, indirect through retailers and online. And in terms of the metrics we need for the coffee filter company, it's clearly production costs. Can we do it at the cost that we think we can to make money? Can we win channel partners? What about price point durability when everybody else joins into this market? And obviously, are we selling enough? So that's an example of how a coffee filter company may be pivoting into COVID-19 mask filters, leveraging a similar needs for slightly different customers and using their existing core competencies, capabilities, and resources. So that is the end of the lean canvas. Hopefully that was quite useful for you. What I'll do now before we open for questions, quickly let you know of the next workout that's coming up, which is on positioning tools, all about how you can position your proposition to consumers relative to the competition and also to their desires and needs. Please have a look at any other facilities on the website and contact me if you will. Last thing is a reminder on the Menti. It would be really valuable to get your feedback. It takes 2 minutes. You can do it on your smartphone. 3 questions. 44 69 44 is the number. Menti.com. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. I'm now going to open for questions.